New fallout from the Trump administration group chat revealing attack plans on Yemen that included a journalist. Scrutiny is focused on Vice President J.D. Vance, who did not support the strikes in Yemen, writing, "I'm not sure the president is aware how inconsistent this is with his message on Europe right now." But the attack went forward anyway, and one MSNBC opinion piece says what it reveals is a cavalier attitude toward new open-ended bombardment campaigns. Joining me now is Democratic Representative Ted Lieu of California. He sits on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Good to see you, my friend. Before, sir, we get to the signal matter, I'm curious, how big a deal is this report that Pete Hegseth's wife, as reported by the Wall Street Journal, attended at least 2 meetings with foreign military leaders where, quote, sensitive information was discussed. What's your reaction to that?
Thank you, Alex, for your question. Let me first say that Secretary Hegseth must resign. He texted secret war plans to a journalist, and when confronted about that, he lied to American people and said it was a hoax when the White House had already authenticated the text messages. And now we have this story about Pete Hegseth's wife. I think reporters need to ask, what exactly was discussed at this meeting? Was it highly sensitive, and did she have a security clearance? What was her purpose of being at the meeting? And we need to know more facts. And if the White House doesn't provide that, then that raises all sorts of red flags.
Okay, true. And let's get to the signal matter. And again, as you've just said, you've called for Hegseth to resign. But beyond the security breach itself, the administration has tried to downplay it. Hegseth saying no classified intelligence was shared. Others in military circles strongly disagree. And some have suggested that Hegseth may have actually declassified the information after the fact. So what does this incident say about how this administration approaches foreign and military policy?
Every national security professional has basically said these would have been classified. Hegseth texted the exact time and date of the launches of military aircraft. There are stories now of military pilots being very upset and angry because this put their lives at risk. So the fact that Hegseth is still denying that he texted secret war plans to journalists is another reason he should resign. He still hasn't accepted responsibility. He still hasn't said, I'm sorry. He does not understand the gravity of what he did. He must go.
Let me show you what happened at a town hall held by a Republican last night. Let's watch. Constituent agrees with your position there, but are you hearing any of your Republican colleagues, privately at least, suggesting that Hegseth must go? Or are they resolute in their support, like the Congresswoman that we saw there from Indiana?
So far, I haven't seen Republicans show any courage and standing up for what is right. If this had been a Democratic administration, they all would have been calling for the resignation of the Secretary of Defense. Oh, yeah. This is simply indefensible conduct. And again, this reckless action by Secretary Hegseth put military lives potentially at risk. It endangered our national security, and it makes our allies not want to share classified information with us.
And that is something serious. Let me get to Mike Waltz, who, yes, has taken responsibility for the chat, but then has also attacked Jeffrey Goldberg and accused him of somehow sneaking into the chat. Take a listen to this.
I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but of all the people out there, somehow this guy who has lied about the president, who has lied to Gold Star families, lied to their attorneys, and gone to Russia hoax, gone to just all kinds of links to lie and smear the president of the United States. And he's the one that somehow gets on somebody's contact and then gets sucked into this group.
Hang on. Somebody's contact? Isn't he the one that added him to the group?
Mike Waltz has not accepted responsibility, as you just saw. And Jeffrey Goldberg, he put out all the screenshots of the text. People can read it for themselves. And one of them specifically says, Mike Waltz added you to the Signal chat. And it's right there in the screenshot. So Mike Waltz just needs to accept responsibility and own up to it. And what he just said clearly shows he still has not accepted responsibility. And for anyone who's used Signal, you can't add yourself to a chat. The person organizing the chat has to add you. So clearly the Trump administration did that, and it looks like it was Michael Waltz who did it.
Mrs. Hegseth on travel.
Let's move to the Signal app controversy. Alex, given your experience, what is your reaction to not only a journalist being on a small group discussing military operations, but also Signal being this method of communication?
I think it's highly, highly unusual. In fact, it's probably unprecedented. As I understand, the chain itself linking the topic of a principals committee meeting, which are often held in the Situation Room in the basement of the West Wing of the White House, with the topic of the meeting, calling it a principals committee meeting, and the topic itself is classified. So the entire chain, at least from my experience in the Obama administration and then in the Biden administration, would have been classified the moment it was started. That said, I think we just have to breathe a sigh of relief that none of our Navy pilots were shot out of the sky as a result of this. That's the first thing. The second thing, and it concerns me as the former chief people officer of the Air Force and the Space Force, principally that the same standard that junior enlisted, mid-level officers, or even the top brass would be held to is not relevant here. I can't imagine anybody else who texted this type of information on an unclassified app that we know our adversaries have access to personal cell phones of senior officials, and that's why we ban this kind of thing. Every other person in the military would be court-martialed and kicked out.
Wow. So you have, Peter, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. He has taken responsibility for this incident, but the group included Defense Secretary Hegseth, Director of National Intelligence Gabbard, other top members of the administration. Then in the immediate aftermath, Trump defended the group and tried to deflect blame onto the journalist. So where do things stand now? Have Waltz or Hegseth been weakened in Trump's eyes by this?
Well, I think so. I mean, the question is whether he does anything about it, and that's a different question. But no question that that Waltz and Hegseth are on the bubble here. No question that they're under fire from their own Republicans. In fact, maybe more in private than in public, but they have not helped themselves. And the question is whether or not Trump chooses to do anything. He is so far dug in. He is basically saying he's not going to take action against them. Certainly Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, made clear the other day she doesn't seem likely to start any kind of investigation. Certainly, as Alex just said, any other situation like this you would think would prompt at least an investigation, even if not necessarily charges. Just to look at what the facts are and see what the situation is and make an evaluation as to whether charges might be appropriate. Here, that doesn't seem to be happening. Now, it is possible that the president eventually decides he wants to get rid of one or both. Each of them has their own problems aside from this with the president. Waltz is not a favorite of the MAGA crowd. There's been talk about him already behind the scenes, even before this. But at the same time, I think that Trump, more than anybody, likes to resist what he considers to be the chattering class. He doesn't like to act under pressure from Washington writ large. And if he can avoid it, he probably will. But but leave these guys on the hook, and that means that if they get in trouble again, even if they survive this time, there's less patience for it.
Yeah. And look, Alex, sure, mistakes happen, but could something like this have happened during your time in the Obama administration? I'm curious, how strictly was the adherence to secure protocols then? And big picture, what does it suggest to you, this whole incident, about how things have changed in this administration?
Alex, from the bottom to the top, everyone who's ever served in the Department of Defense, civilian and military, has to take these basic cyber hygiene trainings every year. They're annoying, they're not fun, but we've all got to do them to prevent exactly the type of action that just happened. As for what it means, I wonder, I scratch my head, could they really be either so inexperienced or so lazy to subvert the basic precautions that are required when America puts its troops in harm's way? And that, to me, when you pull whether or not there was a journalist on the thread or not, whether it's classified material or not, at the end of the day, this type of information getting into the wrong hands threatens and imperils Americans' lives. And that is a really serious thing. And we have to take some action going forward to assure our men and women in uniform that the senior leaders are not being cavalier with their safety.
Peter, you write, what constitutes an official secret in this new era in Washington, it turns out, seems to depend on who is asking and who is telling. How do you explain, Peter, the variety of explanations, the excuses from the various administration members this week? Is it a messaging issue or is it more than that?
Well, it's an attitude issue, right? It's a perception issue, and it's a policy issue. What you consider to be a secret. This is the same week that that the administration went to court and said that it will not tell a federal judge what time a plane of migrants landed in El Salvador, what time it took off, and what time it left U.S. airspace, because that's too sensitive. They invoke what's called the state secrets privilege. Too sensitive to tell a judge information about a plane that has already landed. And by the way, whose landing was captured on video and posted online by the president of El Salvador. Hardly a secret. But they're saying it's too secret. At the same time, they're saying that information about an upcoming military strike, including the specific times that the warplanes would be hitting the targets, is somehow not classified. Somehow not a problem to have out there on an unsecured commercial group chat text-like signal. And I think that disparity happening in the exact same week is very telling.
Look, I want to make it clear that anybody that served in the military is furious at Trump. Like, I'm no expert on this, I got to be honest, right? Like, I'm not an expert on classified military documents. I've never served in a military in any capacity. So I have to defer to people that actually, one, know what the frig they're talking about, and two, have actually put themselves on the line for their country. Say what you will about them. They put themselves on the line. Doesn't apply to me. Doesn't apply to Donald Trump. But it does apply to people in Congress in both parties, and a lot of them are angry. Ted Lieu, like a lot of top Democrats, a lot of top Republicans as well, have served in the military. And it seems like the people that have served are especially angry because they understand not only the rules, not only that if they did something like this when they were in the military, they'd get in a lot of trouble, fired at least, jailed maybe, but that they understand they can take it from the theoretical, which is, okay, you shouldn't be sharing secret documents, doing it on a text message is stupid, and bring it to the practical. Somebody might lose their life because of it. Somebody might perish because Trump was irresponsible, or Trump's officials were irresponsible with data, and Trump irresponsibly picked unqualified people for a lot of these top positions. And Republicans in the Senate were irresponsible in confirming some of these people, although some of them were also confirmed in some cases with some Democrat votes too. It's whatever. The point is, Donald screwed up, and the veterans and the soldiers understand that. And that's what we need to keep an eye on. That Donald put the people that he pretends to care about at risk. This man has made soldiers and veterans and the military a photo op for a decade, but he's the one putting them in danger.